There are people who don't just live in the world, they feel it. Every sound, every silence, every shift in someone's eyes, it all enters them like light through glass. A simple song can move them to tears. A stranger's sadness can sit in their chest for days. They walk through life as if their hearts are made of open windows. Everything comes in. And yet the world calls them too emotional, too sensitive, too much, as if depth were a flaw. But what if being too emotional isn't weakness at all? What if it's awareness in its purest form? The ability to experience life with your entire being. Because here's the truth. Emotional people are not broken. They're awake in a world that has forgotten how to feel. You see, for most people, emotions are visitors. They come, they go. But for emotional people, emotions are residents. They don't just visit the heart. They move in, rearrange the furniture, and leave traces that never quite fade. Every joy feels infinite. Every heartbreak feels eternal. They don't just remember moments. They remember how those moments felt. And that's not imagination. It's psychology. According to psychologists, emotional people experience something called high emotional reactivity. Their nervous systems respond more intensely to emotional stimuli. A small disagreement feels like rejection. A tone of voice feels like a wound. It's not exaggeration, it's the brain's wiring. Research from the University of California shows that people with high emotional reactivity have stronger activity in the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system. Their emotions don't just pass through, they echo. They feel the world amplified. Every joy, every sorrow, every shade of connection reverberates through them. It sounds poetic, doesn't it? But it's exhausting, because emotional people live in high-definition reality, one that never dims. They notice everything. The hesitation in a friend's voice, the slight change in someone's tone, the heaviness behind the words, "I'm fine." It's a kind of emotional X-ray vision, beautiful but draining. They absorb so much that sometimes they forget which emotions are theirs and which belong to others. Science has a name for that too: emotional contagion. Mirror neurons in the brain cause us to unconsciously imitate others' feelings. For emotional people, these neurons are hyperactive. They literally feel what others feel. It's empathy turned into electricity. But when you live like that, when you absorb everyone's emotional weather, your nervous system never really rests. You carry everyone's storms inside your own sky. It often starts in childhood. Emotionally sensitive children are told they're too dramatic, too reactive, or too needy. Their tears are inconvenient, their emotions excessive. So they learn early. If I want to be loved, I must be less. They begin to smile while breaking, to apologize for crying, to hide their intensity behind politeness. But repression doesn't erase emotion, it buries it alive. Studies on emotional suppression show that people who bottle up their feelings experience higher heart rates, elevated stress hormones, and slower emotional recovery. Their bodies become diaries of unspoken emotions, each heartbeat carrying what the voice could not say. And so, as adults, these same people walk the world looking calm on the outside, but trembling within, emotional earthquakes that no one sees. To understand why, let's turn to Dr. Elaine Aron's research on highly sensitive persons. She found that roughly 15 to 20% of the population have nervous systems designed for deep processing. They don't just react to stimuli, they analyze, interpret, and internalize it on a deeper level. That's why they pause longer before answering, why their minds race with meaning behind every word, why they often seem lost in thought. They're not overthinking, they're overfeeling. Their sensitivity is not a flaw, it's an evolved survival mechanism. In ancient times, these people were the tribe's empaths, the ones who sensed danger early, who read moods, who kept the group emotionally cohesive. Their emotional awareness was their radar. Today, that radar still exists, but in a world filled with noise, it becomes overload. The emotional person's greatest gift is also their greatest burden: depth. Because when you feel everything, life doesn't move in light breezes, it hits in waves. A single argument can replay in your mind for days. A careless word can echo like thunder. You replay what you said. You replay what they meant. You replay why it still hurts. And that replaying isn't weakness, it's neurological. Emotional memories are stored more vividly in the brain because the amygdala, emotion center, and hippocampus, memory center, are tightly linked. That's why emotional people often say, "It feels like it just happened yesterday." Their brain literally re-experiences emotion alongside memory. The world tells emotional people to calm down, grow thicker skin, stop taking things personally. But what if we've been asking the wrong thing? What if emotional people don't need thicker skin, they need stronger grounding? Because thick skin numbs you. Grounding strengthens you. Emotions aren't storms to be avoided. They're waves to be understood. And the more you fight them, the more you drown. But when you learn to surf them, to ride the motion of feeling, that's when sensitivity becomes power. We live in a culture that celebrates detachment. The stoic, the unbothered, the unaffected, these are seen as the strong ones. But in truth, strength isn't in being unfeeling. It's in being able to feel deeply and still stay steady. Emotional people don't need to change who they are. They just need to learn how to hold what they feel, gently, wisely, intentionally. Because emotion is not the enemy. It's the compass. And maybe those who feel too much are simply the ones who still remember how to navigate by heart. To understand emotional people, you have to look beneath behavior, beneath the tears, the overthinking, the reactivity, and into the wiring itself. Because emotional sensitivity isn't just personality. It's architecture. It's how the brain, the body, and the heart are built to process the world. When psychologists talk about emotional reactivity, they're describing a nervous system that operates on a higher frequency. For most people, emotions rise like waves and fall quickly. But for emotional individuals, the waves rise higher and take longer to settle. Neuroscientific studies show that emotional people have heightened activity in the amygdala, the brain's center for emotional response. It's like having an emotional amplifier. What others experience at a volume of 3, they experience at a 10. And that's not all. The insula, a region responsible for self-awareness and empathy, is often more active in emotionally attuned people. That's why they don't just notice how others feel, they feel it in their own bodies. A friend's anxiety makes their heart race. A stranger's sadness makes their chest tighten. It's not imagination, it's mirror neurons firing, a biological empathy mechanism that connects one nervous system to another. So when someone says, "You're too emotional," what they're really describing is a nervous system tuned for depth, not damage. But biology is only half the story. The rest is learned, written slowly across time. Because emotion isn't just what we feel, it's how we were taught to feel. From early childhood, emotionally intense individuals often grow up in environments that don't match their sensitivity. If they had emotionally distant parents, they might have learned to amplify their feelings just to be seen. If they had chaotic caregivers, they might have learned to anticipate emotions before they happened. A skill psychologists call hypervigilance. That's the birth of emotional overawareness, the child who reads every tone, every gesture, every sigh. They grow into adults who can sense tension in a room before anyone speaks. It's empathy born from survival. Attachment theory gives us a window into this. According to John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth's research, the way we bond as children shapes our emotional patterns as adults. Number 1, children who experience secure attachment learn that emotions are safe, that love doesn't disappear when they cry or express need. These individuals often grow into emotionally balanced adults. Number 2, but children with anxious attachment, those who received inconsistent affection, learn to feel everything intensely. They cling harder, love deeper, fear abandonment more. Their emotional volume rises because they were never sure if they'd be heard. Number 3, and those with avoidant attachment learn the opposite, that emotions are dangerous. So they shut down, suppress, numb. Yet even they are often deeply emotional underneath. They've just learned to armor it with silence. So the emotional adult is often the emotional child, grown taller but still seeking the safety to feel freely. Let's go deeper into the mental mechanics. Most people think thoughts create emotions, but for emotional people, it often works the other way around. Feelings create thoughts. They don't just think they're hurt, they feel it first viscerally, and then the mind rushes to explain the feeling. Maybe they don't care about me. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I'm not enough. Psychologists call this emotional reasoning, the process of interpreting reality through the lens of emotion. It's not logical, but it's deeply human. The brain evolved to prioritize feeling over reason because emotions once kept us alive. Fear warned us of predators. Sadness drew us toward connection. Anger defended our boundaries. But in the modern world, the same wiring often overreacts to psychological threats: rejection, criticism, silence. To an emotional brain, silence can feel like danger. A pause in a message can feel like abandonment. The nervous system doesn't distinguish between emotional and physical pain. Both light up the same neural pathways. So when an emotional person says, "It literally hurts," they're not being dramatic. It does neurologically. The human brain encodes memories through emotion. When something moves us deeply, our amygdala tags that moment as significant. That's why emotional people have such vivid recollections, not just of events, but of atmospheres. They remember how a day felt, not just what happened. This heightened recall can be both a blessing and a curse. It makes them nostalgic, sentimental, deeply appreciative of beauty. But it also traps them in loops of regret or heartbreak. Emotional time travel where the past feels alive inside the present. Studies from Stanford University show that emotional memories last longer because of stronger amygdala-hippocampus interaction. That means their brain literally replays emotional events with higher detail and intensity. No wonder they say things like, "I can't stop thinking about it." They aren't choosing to. Their brain keeps pressing play. Empathy is beautiful, but for emotional people, it's not just emotional, it's physical. When they walk into a room, they don't just see people, they feel atmospheres. Every subtle shift in energy affects them. That's the phenomenon of emotional contagion, when we unconsciously absorb others' emotions. It's the reason they leave social events exhausted, why arguments drain them for days, why they sometimes isolate. Not because they dislike people, but because they feel too many people at once. Their empathy becomes both radar and weight. They can sense suffering before it's spoken, but sometimes they forget that sensing is not saving. They try to fix pain that was never theirs to heal. And that's how emotional burnout begins, when empathy outpaces boundaries. Modern society often mislabels emotional intensity as instability. If you cry easily, you're fragile. If you love deeply, you're clingy. If you care too much, you're codependent. But these are surface judgments of deep systems. Dr. Mark Brackett from Yale's Center for Emotional Intelligence argues that emotional depth is not dysfunction, it's data. Each emotion, no matter how overwhelming, carries information. Anger shows where boundaries were crossed. Sadness points to what matters. Anxiety highlights uncertainty. Joy signals alignment. The problem isn't feeling too much. It's not knowing how to interpret what we feel. And emotional people, with the right awareness, can become master interpreters, emotional linguists of the soul. Here's the paradox. We live in a world that celebrates artificial connection, but discourages authentic emotion. Social media rewards performance, not vulnerability. So emotional people who crave genuine depth often feel alien in a shallow landscape. They crave conversations that heal, silences that mean something, love that doesn't require pretending. They are, in essence, old souls in a loud world. And the more they try to fit in, the more disconnected they feel, because their natural frequency is introspection, not performance. Their emotions are their truth tellers. But in a world that prefers masks, truth is often lonely. But here's what makes emotional people extraordinary. Even after everything they feel, everything they absorb, they keep loving anyway. They keep showing up with open hearts in a world that keeps asking them to close. That's not weakness. That's resilience in its purest form. To still believe in connection after feeling everything so deeply. Here's the paradox of being emotional. You feel everything, and yet you're constantly told to feel less. You're told to calm down, to be rational, to not take things personally. But how do you separate yourself from what you are made of? Because for emotional people, feelings aren't visitors, they're home. And when the world demands you to leave that home behind, it feels like abandonment from within. To an emotional person, silence isn't just silence. It's a question mark. It's an echo of, did I do something wrong? They replay words, gestures, and glances, analyzing tone, timing pauses, until emotion turns into interrogation. But psychologists explain that overthinking, or rumination, is often a form of emotional problem-solving that has lost direction. It's the mind's attempt to find closure when the heart refuses to let go. And because emotional people store feelings alongside memories, they don't just recall events, they relive them. That's why a small misunderstanding can loop in their mind for days. It's not obsession, it's emotional residue. The feeling hasn't completed its cycle, so the mind keeps replaying the moment, hoping to rewrite it into peace. But peace doesn't come from replay. It comes from release. Emotional people are often experts in guilt. They feel guilty for saying no, guilty for needing space, guilty for caring too much or not enough, even guilty for feeling at all. That guilt, psychologists say, is often rooted in conditional acceptance, the experience of love that depends on being agreeable, helpful, or calm. When children learn that expressing emotions leads to withdrawal or conflict, they internalize a rule. I must manage everyone's comfort, even if it costs my own. So as adults, they become emotional caretakers, constantly scanning, adjusting, smoothing things over. But the more they try to please everyone, the further they drift from themselves. And when exhaustion sets in, guilt whispers again. You should be stronger. You shouldn't feel this way. You're too much. It's a loop of self-blame disguised as virtue. Here's another truth. Emotional people rarely set out to be rescuers. They just can't stand to see others in pain. Empathy becomes instinct. They sense sadness like a sixth sense, and before they know it, they're fixing, helping, absorbing, until they're running on empty. Psychologists call this empathic overarousal, when emotional attunement becomes emotional exhaustion. It's the cost of caring without boundaries. They think they're being kind, but what they're really doing is disappearing. Because compassion without boundaries isn't compassion, it's self-erasure. And yet they keep giving, because deep down, helping others feels like a way to justify their own emotions. If I can soothe someone else's pain, they think, maybe mine will finally make sense. But pain doesn't disappear through others. It dissolves only through understanding. When emotional people fall in love, they don't fall gently. They plunge. They give, they merge, they feel. Every glance, every silence, every promise becomes sacred. But there's a hidden pattern here. Psychologists call it emotional fusion. When one person's emotions become intertwined with another's identity. They don't just love someone, they become them. It's intoxicating but dangerous. Because when love ends, it doesn't feel like a breakup, it feels like amputation. They lose not just the person, but the version of themselves they built around that person. And so they replay every detail, the texts, the laughter, the last goodbye. They look for meaning in the ashes because to them, emotion must always have meaning. But not every feeling has a reason. Some just have rhythm. and learning that truth is often their hardest lesson. At some point, many emotional people decide they've had enough of their own intensity. They build walls, smile through sadness, laugh through pain, and call it maturity. But suppression is not strength. It's emotional storage. Every unspoken feeling becomes energy trapped in the body. The uncried tears turn into fatigue. The unexpressed anger becomes tension. The unacknowledged grief becomes numbness. Clinical studies on emotional suppression show that it increases cortisol levels, weakens immune response, and even impairs memory. Because emotions are meant to move through us, not be buried within us. When you silence emotion, you silence the body's most honest language. For many emotional people, perfectionism becomes emotional armor. They think, if I just do everything right, no one will be upset. No one will leave. I won't have to feel this much pain again. But perfectionism is just fear dressed as discipline. It's not about excellence, it's about control. Because control feels safer than vulnerability. Psychologically, this links back to emotional unpredictability in childhood. If love was inconsistent, perfection becomes a survival strategy. Maybe if I'm perfect, love will stay. But love built on performance always collapses, because it's not received, it's earned. And emotional people don't need to earn love. They need to believe they deserve it even when they're messy, moody, and human. Emotional exhaustion is real. It's not laziness. It's not drama. It's the cost of emotional labor, the invisible energy it takes to care, to empathize, to interpret, to hold space for everyone else's storms. In psychology, this is sometimes called compassion fatigue, a state of emotional depletion that occurs when empathy outweighs recovery. And it's dangerous because when emotional people burn out, they don't just lose energy, they lose connection to themselves. They go from feeling everything to feeling nothing. It's the body's way of saying, I can't hold this anymore. That numbness isn't healing, it's overload. It's the heart on strike. If there's one common ache emotional people share, it's this. They want to be understood. Not fixed, not advised, just understood. Because so much of their life feels like translation, turning invisible emotions into words, only to watch others misunderstand the language. But here's the truth most emotional people forget. You don't need everyone to understand you. You just need to understand yourself. Because once you validate your own emotions, other people's validation becomes optional. The world tells emotional people to stop being so sensitive. But sensitivity isn't the problem, mismanagement is. It's not about feeling less. It's about feeling right. It's about learning which emotions belong to you, which belong to others, and which no longer deserve to stay. Because emotional depth is not a disorder. It's design. And the conflict inside emotional people, between heart and logic, empathy and exhaustion, is not proof of weakness. It's proof of capacity. They carry more because they can. And once they learn to balance that weight, their sensitivity becomes their strength, a bridge between the emotional and the rational, between the human and the humane. Here's the truth that most emotional people never hear enough. Your feelings are not flaws. They're frequencies. You are tuned to life's subtler sounds, the quiet emotions that most people miss. And though that sensitivity sometimes feels like a burden, it's also your greatest gift. Because when you feel deeply, you don't just exist in the world, you connect with it. You see details others overlook. You notice shifts in tone, unspoken pain, invisible beauty. You are not fragile, you are finely tuned. We often talk about intelligence as something that happens in the mind. But psychologists like Daniel Goleman and Mark Brackett have shown that emotional intelligence is just as crucial, sometimes more. Emotional intelligence, or EQ, is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage emotions, both yours and others. And emotional people, by nature, are born with EQ in abundance. They can sense when something's off long before it's said aloud. They can feel the mood of a room without needing explanation. It's what psychologist Dr. Judith Orloff calls emotional empathy. Their nervous system acts like an antenna for emotional truth. But what makes this special isn't just perception, it's connection. Because emotional people don't just read emotions, they respond to them. They listen with their entire being. Their presence itself becomes medicine. Some of the world's most profound art, music, and writing has come from people who felt too deeply for the world around them. Because emotion, when transformed, becomes creation. The painter turns heartbreak into color. The writer turns loneliness into story. The musician turns sorrow into melody. They don't escape their emotions, they translate them. Psychologists call this sublimation, the process of channeling emotional energy into creative or meaningful outlets. It's how emotional intensity becomes art instead of chaos. If you've ever written something raw, created something beautiful, or helped someone heal, you've experienced sublimation. It's the emotional person's superpower, the ability to turn pain into purpose. Because while logic explains life, emotion expresses it. There's another secret strength hidden inside emotional people: intuition. That quiet knowing that seems to come from nowhere, but always feels right. Neuroscience tells us that intuition isn't mystical. It's pattern recognition processed at lightning speed. The more emotionally attuned your brain is, the more information it gathers beneath awareness. That's why emotional people often say things like, "I don't know why, but I just feel this." Their brain has connected dots too quickly for logic to catch up. Studies using fMRI scans have found that people with higher emotional sensitivity show stronger activation in the insula, the region of the brain linked to gut feelings and empathy. Their intuition isn't guessing, it's awareness accelerated. But intuition only thrives in trust. When emotional people doubt their own feelings, intuition collapses into anxiety. The key difference: intuition whispers calm truth. Anxiety screams fearful guesses. Learning to tell them apart is emotional mastery. In a world obsessed with appearances, emotional people see something different. They see essence. They sense the pain behind the mask, the fatigue behind the smile, the hope behind the fear. That's empathy. Not just emotional, but spiritual sight. Dr. Brené Brown describes empathy as feeling with people. It's not fixing, not advising, just being with. And emotional people do this naturally. They carry the ability to hold another person's pain without judgment, without agenda, only presence. That's not weakness. That's power, the rare kind that heals without speaking. And it's empathy that makes emotional people extraordinary leaders, teachers, friends, and partners. Because they don't just listen, they understand. Psychologists often say, emotions are data, not directives. They give you information, but they don't tell you what to do. Emotional people excel once they learn this difference. For example, anger is not evil. It's a signal that a boundary has been crossed. Sadness isn't weakness. It's a sign that something valuable was lost. Anxiety isn't craziness. It's a request for clarity. When emotional people stop judging their emotions and start interpreting them, they become their own translators. And once they understand what their feelings are trying to say, they no longer get lost inside them. They begin to respond, not react. They move from chaos to clarity. There's another kind of courage most people overlook: emotional bravery. The bravery to be open in a world that rewards numbness. To say, "I'm hurting," when silence would be easier. To care deeply even after being disappointed. That's not naivety. That's emotional strength. Vulnerability, as Brené Brown reminds us, is not weakness. It's the birthplace of connection, creativity, and love. And emotional people, by their very nature, live in that birthplace. When they finally stop apologizing for their tears, when they see their openness as courage, something shifts. They stop hiding and start healing. They become living proof that emotion isn't fragility. It's humanity in motion. Emotional people might cry easily, but they also recover deeply. They may bend under pain, but they don't break. Because their emotional elasticity, their ability to feel fully, process, and grow, makes them some of the most resilient souls alive. Research on emotional resilience shows that individuals who engage with their emotions instead of suppressing them recover from stress faster. Their feelings flow instead of stagnate. They metabolize emotion the way the body metabolizes food, not by ignoring it, but by digesting it. So while they may stumble often, they rise wiser each time. Because every emotion they've survived has become another form of strength written quietly beneath their skin. The truth is, emotional people live where most others only visit, the deeper layers of experience where everything matters. They're the ones who feel awe at sunsets, who cry at music, who find meaning in the smallest gestures. They don't rush through life, they taste it. And that presence, that awareness, is what gives their existence richness. Yes, it's heavier, but it's also more alive. Because when you feel everything, even the pain, you live in high definition. The world isn't muted for you, it's symphonic. That's not a curse. That's consciousness. So maybe emotional people aren't broken. Maybe they're just tuned to a frequency most have forgotten how to hear. Their tears aren't proof of weakness. Their silence isn't emptiness. Their depth isn't drama. It's awareness. It's empathy. It's the language of the heart speaking fluently in a world that has forgotten its dialect. The hidden strength of emotional people isn't that they feel less pain. It's that they turn pain into meaning. They create light out of what once burned them. And in that transformation, emotion becomes art, compassion becomes wisdom, and sensitivity becomes superpower. There comes a moment in every emotional person's life when they get tired of drowning. Not because they've stopped caring, but because they've finally realized that feeling deeply doesn't mean losing themselves in every tide. They begin to see that emotions are not commands, they're currents. And the goal was never to stop the waves, it was to learn how to surf them. Psychologists call it affect regulation, the ability to experience strong emotions without being swept away by them. For emotional people, this is not about dulling their feelings. It's about developing balance, the ability to hold sadness and still choose calm, to feel anger and still choose clarity. Dr. Susan David, in her work on emotional agility, explains that emotions are data, not directives. They tell us what matters, but they don't have to control what happens next. Regulation begins with awareness. When you can name what you feel, you take back power from it. Instead of saying, "I am angry," you begin to say, "I'm feeling anger." One tiny shift in language creates an enormous shift in control. Because the moment you become the observer of emotion, you stop being its hostage. Grounding is what emotional people need more than anything else. It's the practice of staying rooted in your body when your mind is overwhelmed by waves. It can be as simple as taking slow breaths and feeling your heartbeat, naming 5 things you can see, 4 you can touch, 3 you can hear, journaling your emotions before reacting to them, or simply sitting in silence until your inner weather clears. Because emotional mastery isn't learned in chaos, it's learned in calm. It's the space between reaction and response that defines growth. And grounding creates that space. Emotional people often think setting boundaries means building walls. But boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They don't block love, they protect it from distortion. A boundary says, "I can care about you without carrying your emotions. I can help you without losing myself. I can love you without agreeing to be hurt." Psychologist Terry Cole calls this fierce boundaries with soft hearts. It means being kind without being a doormat, generous without being drained, present without being consumed. Because compassion without boundaries leads to emotional erosion. You slowly fade while others feed. But compassion with boundaries creates balance. 2 souls standing whole, not one dissolving into the other. Many emotional people secretly chase the impossible. The perfect relationship, the perfect peace, the perfect emotional control. But that's not growth. That's imprisonment in idealism. Emotional healing doesn't mean you never feel chaos again. It means chaos no longer scares you. It means you stop judging yourself for the waves. Because even calm oceans have tides. You can't force stillness. You can only return to it. The real transformation happens when emotional people stop trying to be less emotional and start learning to be emotionally honest. When they stop chasing constant happiness and start practicing inner steadiness. What if every emotion had a message? What if sadness isn't punishment but pause, your heart saying, something meaningful needs your attention? What if anger isn't destruction but direction? The voice of your boundaries demanding to be heard. What if fear isn't weakness but warning? Your intuition asking you to slow down. The emotional person's task isn't to suppress these teachers. It's to listen, learn, and release. That's emotional literacy. Understanding what each emotion asks of you instead of fighting it. It's how you turn pain into guidance. Because once you begin treating emotions as messengers, not monsters, your inner world stops feeling like a battlefield and starts feeling like a conversation. Here's something emotional people rarely give themselves: grace. They forgive everyone else's mistakes, but hold themselves hostage for theirs. They show endless empathy outward, but none inward. But self-compassion is the foundation of emotional mastery. It means you stop asking, "What's wrong with me for feeling this?" and start asking, "What is this feeling trying to show me?" It's the act of sitting beside your own pain instead of running from it. It's the soft whisper that says, "You're allowed to feel this and still be okay." Psychologist Kristen Neff describes self-compassion as a blend of mindfulness, kindness, and common humanity. It's the understanding that emotions are not flaws to fix. They're proof that you're alive. Emotional intelligence is awareness. Emotional maturity is application. It's being able to say, "I feel deeply, but I won't project it. I care intensely, but I won't chase validation. I love sincerely, but I will not lose myself in love." Maturity doesn't mean feeling less. It means not letting feelings drive the car. It means sitting in the driver's seat with emotion beside you, not behind the wheel. When emotional people reach this stage, their lives change. They stop fearing sensitivity and start using it as insight. Their empathy becomes leadership. Their compassion becomes discernment. Their intuition becomes guidance. They become what psychologist Carl Jung once called individuated. Whole, self-aware, emotionally integrated beings who no longer need to escape their own depth. When emotional people finally find balance, something extraordinary happens. They don't stop feeling. They start flowing. Their emotions no longer drown them. They move them. Their tears don't represent weakness. They represent truth. Their sensitivity becomes clarity. Their vulnerability becomes strength. They stop asking, "Why do I feel so much?" and begin saying, "Thank God I still do." Because to feel deeply in a world numbed by noise is to remain human. To cry when something is beautiful is not fragility, it's reverence. To care when others have stopped caring is not naivete, it's courage. They finally understand that emotion was never meant to be controlled, only understood, guided, and honored. So if you are one of those people who feel too much, who cry at sunsets, who love too hard, who carry more than you should, please remember this. You are not weak. You are alive in high definition. You see the world as it feels, not just as it looks. And while that may make life heavier at times, it also makes it real. The goal was never to stop feeling. It was to stop fearing what you feel. Because emotion, when understood, becomes light. And that light, your light, is what keeps the world from going numb. So keep feeling, keep caring, keep being moved by small things. You are not too emotional. You are simply one of the few still capable of being fully human.